Don't even use scent after that. Still not yet. But in accordance to the majority, you may use right after that. When you're done, you may be released, including using scent. And then, after that, come, which we mentioned about, alhamdulillah, the other rukn. In that spirit you remain. Now after this, I said you go to your tent and so on, and you may wash and release yourself, alhamdulillah, and so on, and wear. Remember yesterday I spoke of normal clothes, so it's what normal clothes in my opinion should be in that environment and in those circumstances. Alhamdulillah, fluffy robes that reminds you of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or izar and thawb on top and things like that. Keep that spirit, alhamdulillah, living. Don't hurry into being tight, therefore wearing tight. Tightness will affect inside, and inside it will be tight. Outside, floatiness will make our heart float, inshallah ta'ala, and be open, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. External character affects what we are inside also, and inside determines what we are outside as well. So both affect. Outside affects what we are inside, and what we are inside dictates what we do outside as well. So we do that, alhamdulillah, and we rest if needed and so on. Some people will not be able to continue that day. It's very, mashallah, very demanding day, especially people who walked, or people who are weak or elderly or sick. To do all of those in one day, to many it's challenging. Even finding a ride to Mecca for tawaf, that's challenging. And then coming back, it's challenging. I have found for those who can walk, walking is the best of all alternatives in terms of saving time, in terms of being speedy, in terms of focus, in terms of everything. Except those who have to ride, then that's a different issue. Alhamdulillah, because those who will ride on that day and go to Mecca to perform tawaf, alhamdulillah, first of all, your buses are there to take you, but then to bring you back, that's a challenge to anybody, to every bus and to any taxi and to anybody, because they will not allow you to enter the haram, because it's logistically impossible. You have to stop so far outside, and then you have to walk, and those who will come to pick you up, they will not be allowed at certain hours to come directly there. They have to be outside, and you have to find them, and some people get lost. And then when they drive you back to Muna, they're not allowed to enter, logistically speaking, inside Muna, so they have to drop you outside, and you have to walk. And that all could end up, and you get back probably by Fajr time, or after Fajr time, ila dhalik. In other words, you'll not be able to spend the night in Muna, which is wajib, in accordance with the majority of the ulama, except the Ahnaf, for whom it is sunnah. But the majority of the ulama, it is wajib to spend the night in Muna, of course, unless it's beyond your will and beyond your volition and your ability. That's a different issue. But it is wajib to spend the night there. So if you walked, however, all of that can happen in one night, and you come back and you still sleep in Muna, and you perform Fajr in Muna and so on, if you are able to walk and not ill or too elderly and so on. And many people walk. You find elderly people who are strong and walk. And I mentioned that to you yesterday as well, inshallah ta'ala. So we go to Mecca after that for Tawaf al-Ifada, which we mentioned, and the spirit of it. And you perform sa'i, another sa'i, in accordance with the majority of the ulama. You perform another sa'i. And sa'i in those days is very challenging, keep that in mind. To walk on sa'i, very crowded, chest to back, coming and back. Most of the time it's like that. So keep that in mind and be very patient. No room to walk, to run. No room to run in that side between Al-Marwa, Safa and Al-Marwa in those days, and on that day especially, on the 10th and so on. But you may delay that. You don't have to do it that night. It's a sunnah to do it that night, that day. rather that day. But if you delayed it, and you stay still in that other part of being in ihram, you may do that until it's clearer, and until even when you're until the day you leave, on the 30th day of Mina, when you are leaving, then you go to Tawaf al-Wada'. There are two opinions. One opinion which I believe is more correct, Allah Ta'ala alam. You do one tawaf with the niyyah of both, Ifada and Wada'. Okay? You do one tawaf with the niyyah of Ifada and Wada'. And there are texts about that. And the madhahib, many madhahib are about that. Tawaf al-Wada' is wajib, not rukn. And in the Maliki madhab, it is not even wajib. It is a sunnah. Tawaf al-Wada'. So, you may, if it is very challenging for elderly people or very weak people or so, sick people, some circumstances, you fall sick, so you may still, alhamdulillah, delay that until the day you're going to leave, and or any other day later, and to perform it. If it is on the day you leave, you may even perform one tawaf for both Ifada and Wada'. But if alhamdulillah, you can still wait a day or two still in Muna and then go to tawaf at any time that is convenient to you, inshallah ta'ala, you may still do that. And then at the end, do tawaf al-Wada' when you leave as well. And then after tawaf al-Ifada and sa'i between al-Safa and al-Marwa, as we mentioned, again we go back to Muna, and that's the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a wajib, as I said, in accordance with the majority of the ulama, to spend time in Muna, to sleep in Muna. And in Muna, every day we do 3 times al-Jamarat, all 3 of them one time. Al-Sughra, Al-Kubra, Al-Sughra, Al-Wusta, and Al-Kubra. As you mentioned yesterday, in the same spirit, in the same mental and emotional attitude that we spoke about yesterday, inshallah ta'ala, and the significance of that, including what we said today, I suppose, not today also, earlier today. And then on the last day, we finish in the manner we mentioned earlier, and Hajj finishes, and we have performed our Hajj of Tamattu that way. We have another 40 minutes, alhamdulillah, before Iqamah for Asr, and not 1 hour, unfortunately. We have 40 minutes, unless you want after Asr to stay for longer. For those who have questions, let me now open the floor for all sorts of questions pertaining to fiqh or to inner dimensions, inshallah ta'ala, as well. And if anything I did not say or you want to ask about, please, now is the time, inshallah ta'ala. Yes, please. Afwan.
We have to be prepared. As you said, there will be 2 million people legally, illegally, will be much higher number. And you're right, it's going to be chest to back. Very intense, concentrated. You are aware of MERS, M-E-R-S?
M-E?
Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. It's an epidemic, a pandemic, originating in Saudi Arabia. To date, almost 700 people have died. My question is, protecting yourself, can you focus aware of surgical masks?
Yes, I understand now the question. Now I want first to know about MERS. Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome. And since when was this diagnosed?
All of this year. Part of last year.
Part of this year and last year. Yeah.
If you Google it or anything like that, a lot of information. There was an epidemic that moved to South Korea, and people have died there too. Originating out of camels to human beings. I'm not an expert, but that's what the history is.
Now the history, I was there so this is recent. I just want to know, because this I didn't know before. MERS, and this is fact. Everybody knows this to be fact. Subhanallah. ماذا؟ مرسى. I see. يعربونها إلى مرسى. MERS, مرسى. So it is now well established as a medical condition. Subhanallah. 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 And now wearing those face masks, now medically speaking, do you have information as to its effectiveness? We don't know. No.
You're so close to each other.
Yeah. There are things, indeed, there are things that could be more serious. Of course, that's why you have to to be vaccinated before you go there. Mandatorily, there are certain vaccinations that are required, including the meningitis A and B. Yeah, I know meningitis is worse, of course, than this. So that you have to be vaccinated, ila ذلك. And the fact, of course, that you are there with millions of people, and perspiring and breathing and so on and so forth. Chances are that those certain things may happen, and they do happen, of course. And sometimes maybe some epidemics will happen if they do, depending on what Allah knows of us and wants for us. That's another thing. If Allah willed it not to be, it would not have been. So, however, if that's the case, and one wants to do that, covering the face under those circumstances, there will be two opinions on this issue. Because covering the face is a mahdhur. It's one of the mahdhurat of the Hajj, to cover the face of a man or of a woman. A woman must not in her ihram cover her face, and she must not cover her hands either. You know that. Everybody knows that. And therefore it is a mahdhurat al-ihram. If we are under some circumstances, we feel we are required, or we feel we must, or we should cover our face, then we may. And the two solutions are: one would say, since it is beyond our control, those conditions, they would say you may do that without penance. The other opinion says no, the definition of mahdhur and all of that is even if you have an excuse, you may do that, but you atone for that. So these are the way out in the fiqh. Just I was asking you the question first of all, so that we know, is this fact or is this simply probabilities or improbabilities? Since it is fact, alhamdulillah, we may do that. And if that's the solution suggested, or some of the solutions suggested by the experts in the fields, that we may do that, inshallah ta'ala. And to be on the safe side, to do another ibadah of sadaqah, because penance is a sadaqah. And you give sadaqah. And sadaqah in this case, because it's a mahdhur, it's either fasting 3 days, or giving sadaqah to 6 needy people, or you choose, or offering a sacrifice. In this case, since it is the face. It's something light, not a major type of violation. It's not like the head, it's not like the scent. This is a minor type of violation. So in this case, either you choose the opinion, the first one, without anything, but the safer opinion is, inshallah ta'ala, in this case, is that's another ibadah. To give, maybe Allah wanted us to do that, and so that we give sadaqah. There are people who are needy. And 6 needy people, each one in accordance with some texts is half a sa', which is, by the least estimates, it's about 1.1 kilograms, 1.125 kilograms, something like that. In accordance to the higher estimates in the Hanafi madhab, it's something like 1.85, something 1.85, 1.9 kilograms of dates or something per person, which is. So if you give $5, which is much more than that, per person, for 6 person, that's like $30 little from people who come from this country. So that, alhamdulillah, that's a lot of khair, inshallah ta'ala, and we do that. That's what I would recommend, wallahu ta'ala. Yes. And what? Sneaker. No, you may not. You may not wear anything that covers your ankles, and most of your heels. The sisters may wear anything normal, alhamdulillah, and that's your ihram. For the man, we may wear only that which allows to expose our ankles and most of our heel and most if not all of our top, the face of the foot. So if you wear sandals, most of the sandals we see are fine. Sandals, as long as they don't cover the top, your top. Most of the sandals, if they have, braces or flip-flops for sure. I mean, flip-flops, that's obviously, because flip-flops are not easy to help you to walk. Most flip-flops, if you walk, it will be painful with time. Believe me. I used all of those. I walked in all types of. That's how the first things I used, then the rest, and going stage by stage. They are not helpful for walking long distances. But if you're just around there, alhamdulillah, and most of the time you're riding, yes, that's absolutely fine. They will not hurt you. You may wear flip-flops, sandals, anything that does enhance. Rasulullah in those days, those who could not afford to have sandals, and they could not have sandals, and he didn't tell them walk barefoot, but they said you could wear your khuf, the leather sock, but in accordance with the majority of the ulama, because of some texts you have to also cut those leather socks so that they expose your ankles. At least your ankles must be exposed. If you cut them, from top so that they expose your ankles, that is fine, in accordance to those texts. Is that enough for the khayr? Yes, please. No. That's not. That's part of Hajj. If you want to call it, they don't call it udhiyah in the technical sense in the fiqh. They call it al-hadi. When you are here, you call it udhiyah. When you are there, part of your Hajj as a mutamatti' or a qarin, that's a hadi, which you must do. A mufrid does not have to do that. They're not going to tell him, oh, you're there, it's Eid, you have to do that. If you want, that's something else. Now, if you want, alhamdulillah, and you're as a mufrid, and you want to give a sacrifice as an udhiyah, you may do that, and you may even do not one, nor two, not three. You may do as many as you want. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam offered how many? How many did he offer? By himself he offered 100. How many did he do by his own hands? 63. Subhanallah. As though he told them, this is my year. Of course, Allah must have informed him. Must have informed him of his death. And we know that for a fact when he told them that. When Surah إِذَا جَاءَ Rasulullah al-Fath was revealed, he knew. And he said that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he was preparing them in this hajjah. He said many things that was preparing them for his ultimate departure from this world. And of that, for those who paid attention, he slaughtered by his own hand. He had 100, but he slaughtered 63. Ajib. Not 60, not an even number, not any number, not 50. And he had 163. And he gave the rest to be slaughtered to Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala. So we may do as many as we want. For the requirement, it is one for Hajj. Ifrad, no requirement. But we may do, even in Ifrad, we may offer and more. When? Why? Oh, the Ifrad Hajj, because it is أولا the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the ulama radiallahu ta'ala anhum, of old, all of them said, the Hajj you may do either of the three. Either of the three. And if you do ifrad or qiran or tamattu, is all accepted. There is an opinion, a later opinion, that says after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's Hajj, only Hajj tamattu should be done. That's a very weak opinion, because the rest of the ulama is in understanding the same texts, taking all those texts together, is all is jaiz. And then they have differed as to which Hajj is better, ifrad or tamattu or qiran, knowing all the texts that were there. So in one school, and you have you have three types of Hajj, and you have three different opinions amongst the ulama as to which one is preferred. Each one have their arguments very interesting. Some say ifrad, some say tamattu, some say qiran. You have all those opinions. So, and yes, there is an opinion that says, and emphasizes that opinion, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam seems to have emphasized that the best of Hajj is Hajj tamattu'. But he did not say do not perform any other Hajj. But some have inferred that the best of Hajj from that is tamattu' after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Though the Hajj of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself was what? See, some say tamattu', some say ifrad, some say qiran. In different meanings, though it is well established that he took a hadi from him, saq al-hadi, his sacrifice, he took it with him. And he arrived and he did Umrah first. And then he said, if I did not lead the sacrifice, the offering with me, I would have released myself from this ihram. But he did not. So it could not have been tamattu'. It could not have been ifrad, since saq al-hadi, and he said that first part was umrah. So it was qiran, most likely. But there are other arguments. The point is, that's why some say the best of Hajj is qiran, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did qiran. Some say, no, you didn't understand that. He meant it in the sense of Hajj alone. So the best Hajj is ifrad. Some say, no, you see, didn't he say that if I were to go to Hajj ever anymore in the future, I would have done tamattu'. So tamattu' is the best. وهكذا. Each one has an interesting argument, but all of them, those ulama of all, agree that you do this or that is all khair. But their differences mainly were about which one is the best to perform. Wallahu ta'ala. Yes. There are texts and athar about that the ulama have mentioned. But is that an authentic text, agreeable by everybody that says that? That's another question. Some say no. But some say, alhamdulillah, that there is such a thing, because now we go into other discussion things. Is the text which is not authentic, which is da'if, is it, can we use it as an evidence for certain things? That's another usuli question. Depending on how you answer that usuli question, you can answer some other questions when there is no text that is sahih. And the fact that most of the ulama of old, of the mutaqaddimun, including Imam Ahmad, including Shafi'i, rahimahullah ta'ala, and even Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah ta'ala, that indeed, actually, when you look critically in the opinions of the different ulama, that they used weak texts in ahkam, as long as there is no authentic text in the area that opposes it, then you may use that rather than use the opinions of others. in addition, that's not an addition only. But it is also related to Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala. And this, some ulama, even some critiques, say this is authentic, that he stood there and prayed. Yani, da'a Allah azza wa jal. And therefore, by that at least it should be mustahab. By the fact that the companion did that, radiallahu ta'ala, like Umar ibn al-Khattab, the fact that he did that, that by itself indicates at least some sort of istihbab. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Yes, please. Ahsan. The general rule and the normal rule under normal circumstances, it must be done inside the haram, in Mecca, and distributed among the poor of Mecca. For the dam that is intended for jabr, the dam that is intended for and you don't eat from it yourself. You don't eat from it yourself. That is the dam that is intended for jabr, for rectification of having done something wrong. But the dam that is hadi that you may eat from it. As a mutamatta, you may eat from your animal. As a qarin, you may eat from your animal. As a mufrid, if you decide to slaughter, you may eat from your animal. But if the dam is for jabr, that is the rectification of mistakes we made, then you, as a person who is doing that, you may not eat from it. It is intended only for those who are intended for it, the needy and the poor in Mecca. If for some extenuating reasons you could not do that, you were unable to do that, you went back and then only then you realized, and you could not assign somebody in Mecca in those days especially to do it for you in Mecca, then you may do it wherever you are, inshallah ta'ala. But you only have recourse to that if, in accordance with what I know of the ulama's analyses, is that only if you are unable to do that in Mecca. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Yes, sister. Okay. And the question is, if we're performing tawaf, and in the middle somewhere, after one shout or two or three, where we have to perform wudu, we lost our wudu. May we, as we go and perform wudu our wudu, and we come back, should we start where we finished, or should we start anew? Two opinions, depending on the concept of muwalah. Al-muwalatu fi al-tawaf. The concept of muwalah. Muwalah is a requirement of consecutiveness, the requirement of continuity. Yes, of continuity, the requirement of non-interruption. Muwalah, like in the wudu, if I'm performing wudu and I have my hands and my mouth, and then I stop for a little while to do something, and then I come back to my nose, will that do, or will it nullify my wudu? That's those who require muwalah in wudu, they say you have to start from zero, from scratch, like Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala and the others. All they rely on texts and understandings of those texts. In this case of muwalah, at least as I know, I think two madhahib require muwalah. The Maliki madhab and I think the Hanafi madhab require muwalah. So in that case, we have to start from the beginning. Those who I think the Hanbali madhab, I think requires muwalah. The Hanafi and the Shafi'i madhab, I think it is sunnah. Al-muwalah is sunnah, not wajib. So for those, muwalah is not required, so you come back, you finish from where you started off after you perform wudu. But alhamdulillah, if there is no hardship on you, there's no hardship on you, and that occurred in order to get away from possible differences whenever we can, if it is no hardship on us, inshallah ta'ala, especially, and we can, alhamdulillah, avoid the differences and do that which everybody agrees to, we should do that. If there is no hardship on us. For sure, they would all agree that you starting from the beginning, it's acceptable. But two schools do not agree. Do not agree that you continue where you left off. But they all agree that you start where you from the beginning. So it's always better to, alhamdulillah, to avoid those differences as long as there is no, hardship or excessive hardship on us, inshallah. For both sa'i and tawaf, yes. For both sa'i and tawaf, yes. Some require also muwalah in sa'i as well. Some don't either. Some companions, because they all have, texts on the basis of, for example, some companions would differ sometimes in their opinions when they do not know or they do not recollect something from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if they differ, then whichever you take is khair. You take the opinion of this companion or that companion, it is khair. Sometimes that's why you find some schools differing, because the source of their difference is the difference between sometimes companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and sometimes simply the understanding of the text itself. Yes, please. Very true, very true. That's if he wants to adhere strictly to the madhab, in this case the Hanafi madhab, regardless of any argument, regardless of any objective of the Shara, regardless, and that's not my way. And that should not be the way. We should respect all the madhahib, and we should not stick to a madhab as though it is munazzal, as though it is revealed by Allah Azza wa Jal. That way you respect and you love all of them, and you are less likely to be selfish and to make mistakes, especially on issues where we have one school versus three other schools, not two schools and two schools. And especially if taking that opinion will exert unusual hardship on the Hujjaj, for example. I don't think Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala, if he were living, he would say that. No. Yes, I know that's the opinion in the Hanafi madhab, that order which I mentioned, that's why I didn't comment on it. I left it, hopefully that you just follow the order, and if you can, and that order is indeed there. First al-jamarat, second the offering, third the halq. And if you violate that, you have to atone for it. Well, it's wajib. It's not, he says, you have to do it yourself. It's wajib. Wajib, it's not a rukn. So if you violated that order, and it would put so much hardship on you to go do it yourself, and it does nowadays, I told you, if you can, you go ahead. If I can, I would lovingly do that, because it's a sunnah. I don't believe it's wajib. But I would lovingly do just that. Do follow that order. That's why when we used to go to Hajj, I make sure the groups I'm with, they get a promise that it will be done, let's say, before this time, when everybody or most of us would have finished our rajm. So, but if we cannot, even in the madhab of the Abu Hanifa, your Hajj is still valid, but you offer a sacrifice. You offer an atonement for that because you missed a wajib. But in the opinion of the three other schools, it is not wajib. It is sunnah. The order is sunnah. Whichever order you do, correct. In which order you do that, it's fine. It is sunnah. It's not wajib. And their argument about that, which is well established, all the schools of the Abu Hanifa, they know that, but their way to understand that was different. That Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on that day of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, people did just that. Some companions did just that. They said, Ya Rasulullah, actually, I did not follow your order, this order that you did, in other words, this sequence. I instead shaved before I threw. Or I slaughtered before I casted the pebble, or I did tawaf before I did this. To everyone, the text, it's sahih, many texts, to everyone who asked that question, he answered sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, la haraj, la haraj, la haraj. In other words, there is no harm, there is no harm, there is no harm, it's all right. And the ulama say, the majority, and he did not tell anyone, la haraj, however, atone for it. He did not say that. He said, la haraj, la haraj, la haraj. And if that atonement was required, and if that was wajib in those circumstances, then he would have said, and you atone for that. Since he didn't say that, that's an indication that it is his sunnah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. It's better to do it that way, but if you didn't do it that way, la haraj. And this is definitely a stronger opinion, and especially under circumstances of hardships, ila dhalik, that alhamdulillah, and I'm sure there are some muftis of the Hanafi madhab, if they are ulama, mashallah, well-rooted, under these circumstances they will say, la haraj. You don't have to atone. Because they consider the other opinion of the mujtahidun, of the other schools who are super mujtahids of all times, and under these circumstances they will take that. For example, Imam Malik, and who he was, radiallahu ta'ala an, and in the madhab of Imam Malik, there is this beautiful principle that in some circumstances, especially if a thing is already done, you consider the other madhab. You consider the other madhab. And if it is all right in the other madhab, la haraj alayk. And they don't demand the requirements of the madhab under some of those circumstances, especially if the thing is already done. That's called in the usul of Imam Malik, mura'atul khilaf. Mura'atu al-khilaf, paying scholarly attention to the differences, to the scholarly differences, and using them as part of the fatwa system as well. And that's very beautiful and very superb, which alhamdulillah indicates this openness within the madhahib themselves, of all of them, rahimahumullah ta'ala. But if you insist on that, these are the solutions. Either you go and do it yourself and make sure that it is done. And if it is done, please let me know. I really would like to know. And I always wanted to do it myself. No, not you, just the editorial you now. I want to do it myself because that's the sunnah. But I have tried and I have asked, and it is very, very difficult.
I thought it was stringent.
Yeah, very hard, very hard.
It was the reason I'm asking was a point of contention between myself and my wife.
Yeah. Well, tell her, who said she must do it? She respects
this imam, so she felt like she had to listen to him. But I said, that's too strict.
Khalas, tell her, you go do that for me. You go do that and let us know and record everything, and we will use it in fatwa in the future. If she can do it, and she does it in some time, I will definitely say, and it is better to do that. Even if, but the majority of the opinion says it is sunnah. They don't say don't do it that way. They say, alhamdulillah, if you do it that way, that's better. But if it is hard, and it is hardship, nowadays it is. It is. With the hygiene required, with the distribution of the meat required, where are you going to carry it? How are you going to do it? And it's hot outside, and ila ghayri dhalik. It is doable, yes, for some, but to what extent, that's a different question. Any other question? Yes, please.
I have a question in terms of you offer sacrifice for atonement. No. What if you don't know that he made a mistake?
Mashallah. Khalas, if you don't know, it doesn't exist. Because if you don't know you made a mistake, there is no mistake. Alhamdulillah, our deen is like this. If you don't know you made a mistake, then there is no mistake. Innocent until proven guilty. Al-bara'atul asliyah. Innocent until proven guilty, this is a universal law in Islam centuries ago, 14 centuries ago. That's a very important part of law, is al-bara'atul asliyah. Everything, not only in terms of crime or so, but of responsibility, of any responsibility. Every servant of Allah is absolved of any responsibility unless it It is explicitly otherwise stated in the law. So, in this case, you don't know. If you don't know, then there is nothing to worry about. You're still absolved of responsibility since you do not know that you did something wrong. Of course, not only that, your niyyah, yes, but this is knowledge. This is not even niyyah. This is knowledge. It's first information. You are not aware at all that you did anything wrong. Whether you directly or somebody brought it to your attention, there is no such a thing. So you're still innocent and absolved from any responsibility. Because the next thing is what usually people say, and you probably intend, what if I offer something just in case I made a mistake and this goes for that? That's what people usually say and do. First, this is the answer I gave. Don't assume responsibility when Allah did not put it on you. Don't feel you have to do that, because this may lead to people then demanding on themselves that which Allah did not, and it will lead to some serious problems. Later on, people saying you have to do that. No, you have to offer something just in case. And then with time, things become like that, believe me. Many things are introduced in the deen out of people imposing hardship on themselves, and then with practice of that in later generations, it becomes like law. And those who don't do it, they are scorned. So, that's the answer. Do not do anything if you do not know you have done anything wrong. If you want to give sadaqah in general, do give sadaqah in general. Alhamdulillah, it's highly recommended. And Allah in His munificence, subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, if we made a mistake unknowingly, that is there for us. But even without that, Allah's rahmah is with us, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yes, give sadaqah always, but not for that reason. Yes, please.
Follow-up question is this question. If you have to do the sacrifice right at the time, or you can do it any time, such as if you don't have money to do the sacrifice, or you don't have that much.
Which type of sacrifice?
That, we are discussing about the sacrifice during the Hajj, right?
Are you talking about the Hajj, Tamattu or Qiran? Yes, yes.
So if you don't have something, if you made a mistake, you know that you made a mistake.
No, that's different. This is different. The sacrifice that I thought you mentioned was because you perform a Hajj, Tamattu or Qiran. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Okay. Nothing to do with what we're talking about. Okay? What we're talking about is while you are in Hajj, you commit a mistake. Then you offer sacrifice. The sacrifice for Hajj itself has nothing to do with this. That's another one. That's an obligatory one for the people performing Hajj Tamattu or Hajj Qiran. But these things are for anybody who's performing Hajj or Umrah and making a mistake in missing a wajib, for example. That's what we're talking about. And that usually and that you perform, you give as soon as possible. As soon as possible, preferably before you leave Mecca, because it has to be in Mecca. And we mentioned earlier, if for some circumstances it was impossible or you didn't know until you went back home and you realized that, and then you know that you have to atone for that. For example, if you missed the Jamarat one time, that requires an atonement, a dam, and then you're in the United States, in Plano, and then oh my God, I didn't know that. What should I do? Now you should call Mecca, people you know there, really, and ask if you know some people and tell them to do that on your behalf. You pay them and all of that, and they do that on your behalf. Alhamdulillah. If you can do that. Nowadays, that is possible in so many ways. Texting, calling, emailing, all of that can be done. But if you cannot do that, you don't have anybody there, you cannot do that, alhamdulillah, where you are, you offer that sacrifice and you distribute it among the needy and the poor. أينعم وصلى الله على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين وأصحابه الميامين والتابعين لهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We implore Allah Azza wa Jalla, we beg of Him to grant all our brothers and sisters, those who are going to Hajj, a Hajj Mabrur and Umrah Mabrur, inshallah ta'ala, and to enable all of us, and especially those whose hearts long for that moment of encounter with the house of Allah Azza wa Jal, and with the essential, beautiful spiritual dimensions of Hajj and Umrah, that Allah Azza wa Jal will never deprive us of being there again and again and again, inshallah ta'ala, with the fullness of our hearts and souls and minds, bi'idhnihi Azza wa Jal. And please, my dear sisters and brothers, those who are going this year, please don't forget us in your dua. Don't forget me in your dua. Don't forget my family in your dua, especially my mother, jazakumullahu khairan, and everybody, brothers and sisters in this community, inshallah ta'ala. Don't forget them in your dua. Be in that spirit that I mentioned to you, especially yesterday, and Allah Azza wa Jal is very generous and will bless you with a lot of special gifts, inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallim wa barik ala sayyidina mawlana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Who is here? Is Zahid here?